the Arctic, I have a couple of, over the last 2 years, I've been into this topic. The way I went into this topic was, the Arctic and Asia. China, Korea, Japan, because of, this, new sea route. A lot of Europeans, they are interested the roles, particularly China, Japan, Korea, China could play over the geopolitics of energy. So I have a couple of articles that analyzed, whether or not Russia, China, they cooperate or they conflict each other in the Arctic. And I found that both aspects, they cooperate, but at the same time, they compete. And one of the hotly debated issues about the Arctic is May 2013. I don't know how many of you noted that fact. China, Korea, Japan were rewarded permanent observer status in the Arctic Council. The significance of, along with several other countries, Singapore, Italy, there are a couple of other countries. So particularly China, Korea, Japan, the fact that they became permanent observers in the Arctic Council. The Arctic Council is one of two important, institutions about Arctic politics. So, how is it important? The fact that China, Korea, Japan became permanent observers in the Arctic Council. The roles they play will be different. So these are sort of one of the emerging debates over the Arctic. Russia, most important player, right? Russia, most important player. The fact that they hold maybe 2/3, depending on how jurisdiction, sovereignty issues evolve. Russia might end up with 2/3 of all the Arctic oil and gas resources. Although there are other mineral resources, oil and gas 2/3, belong to Russian territory. So, this territorial debate is so important for Russia, right? And the sea route, right? Like I said, due to climate changes, the Arctic ice is melting, right? Much more quickly than we expected. So there are a lot of news coming out about Arctic climate change. Climate change there in the Arctic much faster than in other areas. So the contribution of Arctic ice melting, Arctic climate change, to entire global climate change, very important, right? So climate change in the Arctic has local Arctic impact, but at the same time global impact, right? So first, I think we are going to begin with climate change in the Arctic. How fast, how significant, some of the scientific information about Arctic climate change. Then due to climate change, I think two important changes, right? So first climate change, then we have sea route opening, new sea routes opening, right? Particularly seasonally, right? Summertime already it's open, right? Not 365 days, but maybe 1/3 now open, right? So companies are using these new sea routes, right? There are two sea routes, NSR, Northern Sea Route, Northeastern Sea Route, and Northwestern Sea Route, right? Northeastern Sea Route is, most of the sea route is claimed and also along the coastlines of Russia, right? So Russia claims the sea routes are internal sea routes rather than international passage, right? So we need to follow the claims, arguments made by Russians regarding this northeastern sea route, which is linking the Arctic and China, Korea, Japan. That's how China, Korea, Japan get involved in Arctic politics. Right? The reason China, Korea, Japan, particularly China is beefing up diplomatic presence in the Arctic, right? Signing bilateral treaties, agreements with many different Arctic coastal states. And right, you are going to read a lot of articles about China's Arctic strategy. What is China's Arctic strategy? Which is not clear because China doesn't want to present their plans as strategies because, you know, their strategy is that China simply doing some scientific work, right? So there is no national level strategic plan about Arctic. That's Chinese strategy. But clearly, China is doing some geopolitical, I think, maneuvering there, right, against Russia particularly and against the U.S. And also business interest, military interest, strategic interest. That's why, you know, we need to look at the Arctic as a geopolitics rather than energy and business. So sea routes, right? China, Korea, Japan, they are major consumers, right? China, Korea, Japan, they have, you know, traditional, right, shipping route, right, through Suez Canal, Panama Canal, right? But they are becoming limited. So NSR, Northeastern Sea Route, provides these East Asian countries, China, Korea, Japan, including Singapore. That's why Singapore also obtained the permanent observer status May 2013. So China, Korea, Japan, for them, NSR is a huge economic business opportunity because it shelves the distance pretty much, 1/3 distance shelved using NSR. A lot of money saved using this new route. But one problem is the Russian claim. Russian claim that NSR is a Russian route, right? If that's true, I think which is a very serious claim. You know, why Russians claim that NSR is Russia's own internal passage? The reason behind it, I think, is that, well, you know, Suez Canal, I mean, the politics of these shipping routes, I mean, Egypt, they raise a lot of money, right, through this, you know, shipping route. And also politics behind it. I mean, not simply earning money. If Russia proves that somehow, you know, NSR is accepted, NSR is Russian route, then I think they can charge a lot of, you know, fees, right, for these, you know, ships passing these Russian routes, fees, so money involved. And also, I think that Russia can enjoy some other, I think, benefits, like strategic benefits. Russia can ask you know, companies to use Russian icebreakers, right? So that's one way of charging fees. And also Russia can revoke maybe some permissions, maybe governments and companies, they have to report to the Russian authorities before they, right, travel this sea route, right? So Russia has many things, you know, they can enjoy from this new shipping route. So that's one of the battles, you know, among countries over this sea route. We Koreans, yes, we Koreans are thinking this is a national project linking Busan, right? Busan passing, I think, yeah, it passes, I think, East Sea, right? Not Japan Sea, East Sea. Then go up to maybe some ports, North Korean ports or Russian ports. In fact, North Korean ports are found to be very useful. Right? Russia, China, they are developing together these ports in lieu of Arctic sea route opening. So ships, I think, begin in Busan. Then they pass through, Russian, North Korean ports. Then they travel along Russian coastline, right, down to open Arctic Sea. So this is NSR debate. So most of Arctic debate is about NSR debate. And a lot of European research institutes, particularly those from maybe Sweden and Norway, Finland, you might know FNI, Fridtjof Nansen Institute, right? One of the big research institutes, and from Norway, and Norwegian Institute of something like Defense or Strategic Studies. They're one of the big projects they are administering now is Asia and the Arctic, right? So this is so important issue, particularly for European countries. That's I think, and also because of that commercial, because of these prospects of commercial opportunities, governments, I think they back up, right? Other always, these commercial shipping routes always linked to the strategic, bigger business, state business, right? Defense, there will be naval, conflicts sometimes, right? Russians, I think, good example. Russians are investing a lot of money into naval capabilities to prepare for this Arctic age. Russians are investing and moving troops, moving weapons, building ports. Russians are, I think, leading in this respect. They're preparing new ports, so building infrastructure and moving weapons, right? Things like that. Then when Russia, moves like this, then Canadians are, right, reacting, right? Americans are relatively passive. America didn't have a national Arctic strategy. But America is being awakened to the importance of this issue, right? So just last year, America announced a big Arctic national strategy, blueprint. So America will join this, I think, geopolitical game. Someone calls it, this is the great game in the North. The great game in the high North, right? Usually great game is a game being played in Central Asia, right? Eurasian region. But the center is moving from Eurasia to the high North. So someone calls it, this is the great game in the high North, right? So money involved, weapons involved, right? So today I think that we have to first, I think, look at some of the climate changes, right, that are occurring over the Arctic. Then shipping routes, NSR. Then, because we have to have second part Wednesday. Some of the jurisdiction issues. I think that's it for today. Then Wednesday, more of a, national strategies of Russia, China, U.S., Japan, Korea. That's, I think, we have to do on Wednesday. Today is just basics of Arctic politics. Now, climate change first, because everything, I think, is derived from this. Climate is changing in the Arctic. So that many specialists, they watch the Arctic region, right, very closely. Because Arctic, the implication of climate change in the Arctic, both at local, right, both at Arctic regional and also global, the implication is huge. Because this region is very sensitive, right? Very sensitive region. The fact that the region is right, covered with ice, that makes this region so sensitive in terms of climate change, and this is changes in the Arctic important because this is a harbinger of things in other, right, beyond the Arctic region. So a lot of scientists, they focus on what happens in the Arctic region scientifically, right? Then what is happening? What is taking place? It depends on data. I think it depends on scientists. Some argue that temperature rise in the Arctic region rising twice as fast as elsewhere in the world, but others argue 3 times, right? It depends on data, but I think this textbook says rising twice as fast. So that Arctic ice is getting much thinner, right, and rupturing. And there are many like maps that show how the ice cap is shrinking, right? There are many satellite views, photos. 9% in 10 years, right? The Arctic ice is shrinking. About 10%, let's say, in 10 years. And IPCC, report, 2007, they proved that, right? It's a fact, right? Unequivocal changes are happening in the Arctic in terms of climate change. They proved that. And Arctic sea ice extent, 1980, 2005, 2.7 per decade. And it's going faster, much faster, right? And September 2007, record low of ice, sea ice extent. Right? This is 38% below 1979, 2007 average. This is important. Then why melting ice has, this climate implications? Because of this, scientifically, when Arctic ice melts, less heat is reflected, so that the water warms up, right? That's why temperature rises. And about this scientific aspect, I mean, you can read a lot of reports about this, right? Scientifically, why this is, important, significant. So at this rate, initially 2007 IPCC estimated Arctic summers will become ice-free beginning 2070. Okay, This is what they said initially. But later, more recent data to 2035, more recent data 2020. By the end of this decade, at least summer, right? Arctic summer time, we'll have a free Arctic ice-free by 2020. This was the founding from 2012. So it's going much faster, right? That's the point. So this shows, this line, the red line shows the summer Arctic sea ice boundary, 79. Okay? And this is the current. Right? So this is how much the ice is shrinking. It says 20%. It has shrunk 20%. This is illustration from NASA. And there are many other photos and illustrations. Now, 2011, this shows seasonal difference. This shows seasonal difference. This is summertime. Okay, the year of 2011, summertime, much smaller than wintertime, right? So during those summertime, ships can navigate, right? Then the impact of this melting on the Arctic region first, okay? The Arctic region. This is, I think, most of the reports discuss. First, the impact on the Arctic. Then the impact is not limited to the Arctic alone. The impact goes beyond the Arctic region, right? Global impact. So this is usually many reports cover this way. First, Arctic impact. First, I think there are many reports that discuss native people, right, and their wildlife and plants, animals, right, their migration patterns, right, so that native people cannot hunt them, right. So this kind of problem, environmental, problems, these animals, right, changing their feeding pattern, migration pattern, and even permafrost is ruptured, right, the buildings, right, shaken, a lot of these problems. So these people, I think, they see these as a threat. Right? This is one avenue of research and literature developing. So these native people, native perspectives, they see this climate change as a threat to their cultural identity, survival, right? So, this kind of a study is very popular, these native perspectives, right? There are many different native people living along these coastlines, right? Very popular research. Anthropologists, they went into this field. And global effects also, right? The impact is not limited to the Arctic alone. It has global effects. Like I said, global effects is global warming, has an impact on global warming because of loss of ice means more heat is absorbed, right? So this is a citation from one famous scholar on this issue. As sea ice retreats, sunshine that would have been reflected back to space by the bright ice is instead absorbed by the ocean, which heats up, melting even more ice. Right? Particularly these, Greenland ice sheet, presented as a huge problem, and because of this melting Greenland ice sheet, sea levels rise. Right? Satellite data suggests over the last 20 years, Greenland ice sheet has lost 140 billion tons of ice per year. There are many also illustrations about this. And the fact that permafrost is thawing itself, right, raises temperatures because right, permafrost is once frozen ground in the Arctic, right? Because this the permafrost, I think, itself releases carbon dioxide and methane, right? So because of this, I think there will be additional global warming, right, from the Arctic region. So this is number 3 effects. And even in the Al Gore film, Al Gore video, he, I think, covers pretty well about all these things, and also the winter temperature changes because of this Arctic climate change. That hits European region particularly. So melting sea ice can influence winter weather, particularly in Europe. Why this is so scientifically, it's hard for me to explain. It's like a sea current changes. There are a lot of explanation about all this. So winter weather changes because of melting sea ice, and Al Gore video has it also about this. Now, so this is climate change. Then because of this climate change, then Arctic sea route, new sea route opens, which is NSR. There are 2 new sea routes opening because of this Arctic ice melting. One is so-called Northwest Passage, linking Europe and the U.S. West Coast. This is called Northwest Passage, or Northeast Asia, okay, between Northeast Asia and the Asia-Pacific region. Northern Sea Route. This is Northern Sea Route, NSR. Better to look at the next map. Right. This is a summary map. Right. So, for instance, European region linking, right, Japan, China, Korea. This is new sea route. Right. And this is former, past traditional sea route these East Asian countries using. Right. So for instance, from Yokohama, Japan, right, via Suez Canal, it was 12,894 miles, right? But NSR, 8,452 miles, right? A lot of distance saved. From Shanghai, again, via Suez Canal, 12,107 miles. NSR, 9,297 miles. Okay. Another map. In terms of travel time, Suez Canal, 48 days. NSR, 35 days. Okay. Right. And these are the problems Suez Canal have. Right. Okay. This is a more detailed look at this is NSR, right? This is NSR, and this is Northwest Passage. And when you navigate, you pass all these different seas, right? These are names of seas. These are Russian, right? Most of these NSR claimed by Russia and pass Russian ports and Russian seas, like seas like Kara. This is Kara Sea, right? And there are many straits between them, right? Between seas, there are many straits. This is Lapchev Sea, Russian Sea. East Siberian Sea. This is Chukchi Sea. This is Bering Strait, Barents Sea. Right? So the ships navigate this way, then go this way, then reach Korea, China, Japan. This is NSR. And Russia, in preparation for this Arctic age, they are developing all these ports here, ports and infrastructure facilities, which require a lot of investment. And they develop oil and gas here and there, right? Then ship it to export to China, Korea, Japan. And right, these are European. Right? Now, this is a comparison of from the perspective of Shanghai, Busan, Yokohama. This comparison table, right? So 16-day saving, 19-day saving, 20-day saving, right, from different ports. Now, then resources, right? Because of climate change, Arctic ice melts, then these new shipping routes open, and also oil and gas and other minerals are, discovered. I think the first authoritative, research about resources in the Arctic region, resources and minerals, was the famous survey by USGS, U.S. Geological Survey. They issued a famous survey in 2008. According to them, the Arctic has 1,670 TCF of natural gas. Okay, from 2008 survey, 1,670 TCF of natural gas. If you remember, if you compare it to like a shale gas, from America, and shale gas China, this is almost equivalent to the entire shale gas amount in the United States. Right? So this is a lot of natural gas and 90 billion barrels of oil. Okay, which is equivalent to 13% of the world's undiscovered oil and 30% of the world's undiscovered natural gas. So Arctic has this much of oil and gas and other minerals, a lot of other minerals, and fishing resources also, right? A lot of fisheries. And in fact, the region has already produced a lot of oil and gas. 40 billion barrels of oil they have already produced. 1,136 TCF of natural gas they have already produced, right? And 8 billion natural gas liquids, right? They have already produced this, and they will produce much more than this, maybe in the future, right? And the question is, since there's a lot of oil and gas and other minerals and fishing resources, the question is who owns it, right? Most important question. Legally, who owns it determines, right, who will enjoy the benefits of these resources, which is undecided, legally undecided. This is a huge problem facing in terms of Arctic governance, this legal battle over jurisdiction, sovereignty over territorial waters, and right at the same time these resources. This is the most important question facing Arctic countries. We'll discuss that shortly. Russia is known to have 2/3 of oil and gas, okay, which is 60 billion barrels of oil in the Russian part of the Arctic. But again, Russia must prove, okay, Russia must prove these resources belong to Russia legally. That's the only problem. Right? If Russia passes this official body, official legal institution, then 2/3 of Arctic resources will be controlled by Russia. Right? This is contested by other countries. Right? 70% of Arctic resources will likely belong to Russia. And there are many other resource minerals, diamonds, gold, a lot of other minerals. This is a map that shows which resources, located, which country, belong to which country. Like red one is oil and gas. Red one, oil and gas. Here, oil and gas here, or here, here. Blue one, light blue one, major fisheries. Here, major fishing resources here, off the coast of Norway, Finland, Sweden, Fishing resources here and here. What is this? Tourism. This green color shows tourism. Where's green? Can't find green. And this blue, dark blue, hard minerals here, and here. And this one, yellow, research. A lot of research is being done here, Maybe look at another map. Another map, maybe better one. Like again, red dots show gas production. Red dots here, A lot here, a lot of gas production going on. And like green dots show oil production, green dots, a lot of oil production. Alaska here, right? Also here. If you look at Russia, these are Russian provinces where a lot of oil and gas are being produced here, like a Saha Republic, and Chukotka, and Taimyr, and this is famous Yamal Nenets, right? These are native people, Yamal Nenets, and Nenets, Komi Republic. Here, a lot of oil and gas is being produced. And also Norway, Finland, right? Oil and gas production. And this is Iceland and Greenland. This is how Arctic resources are claimed by, Arctic territory is claimed by different countries. We look at UN clause, regulations sooner or later, shortly. But again, these are gas fields, red dots, gas fields here, and these are oil fields. And this is 200-mile line. Okay, so America has rights up here. Okay, Canada has rights up here. Russia. But the problem is here. Whether or not they have rights beyond this line. Right? Russia argues that if they prove the coastlines are connected all the way here, right? Then they can have rights up here, right? So the battles over this region, right? To show that Russia planted titanium, flag under the seabed here, right? To show that this is Russian territorial water. Now let's look at the UN regulations on this issue. So officially, the convention, UN clause, this is a convention that resulted from 82 United Nations Conference on the Law of the Sea, which is UN clause, right? This is official, like a institution that governs all these maritime, right, territorial issues. And they set out a framework for the law of the sea. And according to UN clause, according to what they agreed on, okay, the territorial sea, there are three layers of, right, different territories. First, territorial sea, which extends 12 miles from a coastal line. Then EEZ, exclusive economic zone, sets out extending 200 miles. So 212 miles automatically given, right, to the countries. And the problem, there is no debate on this. Okay, there is no debate. The problem is this one. No. Right, like I said, territorial sea. This is the definition of territorial sea. Okay, up to 12 miles. Then 200-mile, right, exclusive economic zone. But disputed issue is extended continental shelf. This is a dispute, right? Extended continental shelf, okay? When countries show there is a natural prolongation of its landmass, right? Beyond 212 miles, right? That is extended continental shelf, right? This is a debate. This is a debate. So under the UN clause, they formed a separate commission on the limits of the continental shelf, which is CLCS, right? Their job is to establish the outer limits of the continental shelves under the UN clause treaty. So 2001, Russia has submitted claims to the extended continental shelf, including Lomonosov Ridge, right? 2001, they submitted and rejected. 2002, rejected by other countries, right? So now, right? I don't know how appropriate this title is in describing the Arctic today. Has the Cold War started in the Arctic? Maybe a little bit of overstatement, because in general, I think Arctic issues are handled in a cooperative manner, right? Although we have like a very like a stark disagreements, including CLCS, these issues. But in general, I think Arctic issues go in a way that very cooperative manner. But despite that fact, I think many like to describe Arctic affairs as this way, as the Cold War started, right? And the reason why people like to use this kind of a description is that, particularly 2007, the atmosphere was very intense at that time, 2007. Although things have changed a little bit at that, after that. 2009, Russia, Norway, they have come to some agreement over some of the disputes. So a little bit cooperative since 2009, but still a lot of room for disagreement still. So this was like a peak of conflicts among coastal states, 2007. Right, this is the planting of titanium Russian flag under the seabed of the North Pole, right? 2007. This was the peak time for conflict, right? Since then, a little bit of a cooperation. Right. I think that the two main antagonists are Russia and Canada. Two main antagonists. Russia, Canada, they use most, I think, nationalist terms in describing Arctic issues. Very strong words, right? Russia, Canada, they are two main antagonists. So this is kind of a, the way people describe Arctic. Is it peace or war, right? Is peace going to prevail, or is war going to, occur? Right? These kind of questions, right? The role of the Arctic Council. So are we going to have a limited, armed, conflicts, right? small, or full-scale naval, warfare, and a lot of nuclear weapons there, right? An American reaction, right? The U.S. scramble the icebreakers and increase, Arctic air patrols. This is actually what they do. I mean, Russians and Americans. And America is boosting funding, right? The U.S. Coast Guard Arctic missions. This is something I think we need to track down recently. America is giving out a lot of new proposals in the Arctic. Canadians, very strong words, right? They conduct some military exercises. And Canadian Prime Minister, give out big speeches about this, right? Denying Russian claims, right? And new military bases in the Arctic. How about Denmark? Danish reaction. New scientific, programs. They deny Russian claim, right? They deny Russian claim. And they have also flag planting ceremony, right? Right? Off the coast of Hans Island. Right? Norwegian reaction. Norway, Russia, they have friendly relations. Right? So Norway is relatively silent. Right? Like I said, 2009, Russia, Norway, they came to a big agreement, Russia, Norway. Right? They have a long history of strategic partnership with Russia. Statoil and Gazprom and Rosneft. And Alaska is important. Right? Alaska is important. Right? And these are the companies that are working: Exxon, Shell, right? BP, Statoil, Gazprom. These are the companies. Arctic 5. 5 states control territory in the Arctic. In fact, the Arctic Ocean, although it has different definitions, the Arctic Ocean, the surface size is really huge, the Arctic Ocean. Would you believe if the Arctic Ocean is 1.5 times bigger than the size of the United States? That's how big the entire surface of the Arctic Ocean is really huge, right? So 5 states control. They are Arctic 5 countries: Norway, Denmark, Russia, America, Canada. Right? And famous declaration, the Ilulissat Declaration, according to which they settle the overlapping claims, then they support this UN treaty and the Arctic Council. So these two institutions, this UN treaty and the Arctic Council, these are two institutions that govern Arctic issues, right? And these Arctic 5 countries convened Ilulissat, then they make this declaration, right? We'll abide by this, right, treaty and the Arctic Council. We respect the Arctic Council. Now, the Asia and the Arctic. Which is something a lot of people are interested in these days. Korean policy in the Arctic, or Japanese policy in the Arctic, or Chinese strategy, China's Arctic strategy. These are really fantastic topics for research. And like I said, May 2013, China, Korea, Japan obtained permanent observer status in the Arctic Council. That's a, I think, turning point in Asia and the Arctic relations. And in terms of Korean policy in the Arctic, I think Korean interest in the Arctic began in 2012 under former President Lee Myung-bak. He visited, the Norway and a couple of other countries in the Arctic region. Then the reason why Koreans are interested, because Koreans are very big on shipbuilding industry. So, Korea will be a huge benefactor when the Arctic, sea routes open. Then there will be many more, these specialty ships. There will be needs for these specialty ships. So Korea will be a huge benefactor. That's why Koreans are interested. And also Port of Busan as a transportation hub, right? And Rajin, North Korean port, Rajin, which is right below Vladivostok, right? It's unfreezing port in Northeast Asian region. So the port of Rajin again is under like a intense, sort of a China is developing and Russia is developing. They're competing to develop this port of Rajin, because the port of Rajin will be very important as a transshipment port. So why Koreans are interested in Arctic issues? Because this is one way of resolving like a North Korean, South Korean tension. And both Russia, China, they get involved in this, right? So this is an important issue for Korea. And we discussed a lot about U.S. LNG, prospects for U.S. LNG exports, right? And the market will be China, Korea, Japan. But again, this is exactly the opposite proposal, right? Against U.S. LNG exports. When Arctic is fully developed and Russian ports are developed, right? Infrastructure development there, then oil and gas out of Arctic regions produced, then I think a new avenue of energy trade will be open, right? So Korea is like a sandwich between these sort of U.S. LNG and other LNG options. Then these Arctic, mostly Russian oil and gas, right? So we are weighing these two options together, right? So Asia and the Arctic, right? I mean, no doubt, Asian countries, China, Korea, Japan, they have no territory in the Arctic, right? So this is a tricky question. You know, China is not an Arctic country, right? But what kind of rights China can claim? Same goes for Japan and Korea. What kind of rights, right? I think the reason why China, Korea, Japan became a member of the Arctic is that, using Chinese terms, I think we are Arctic stakeholders. We are not Arctic countries, but we are Arctic stakeholders. That's why we need to make sure we know what's happening, all right, there in Arctic region. Right. So South Korea, Japan, China, they were not permanent members of the Arctic Council. Right. Over the last 5 years, right, we have applied to become a permanent member, right, but it failed. In fact, this is a very good topic for research. Good topic, very good topic. A lot of research, ongoing research is being done on this issue. They have been considered ad hoc observers, right, over the last several years. And as an ad hoc observer, they were required to request permission for attendance from the council members, right? So like I said, in May, the Arctic Council, May 2013, the Arctic Council granted observer status to China, along with India, Italy, Japan, Singapore, South Korea. Okay? South Korea and the Arctic. Can we begin from this Wednesday? So South Korea, Japan, China. We'll spend a lot of time discussing Chinese strategy in the Arctic Wednesday, and American strategy, Russian strategy, okay, Wednesday.